Okay, hi! I should probably make up something to fill that space. Can I say I'm doing a rebrand if my channel never really had a brand? I don't know, I'm doing a rebrand. I'm a bit of an art nerd and I really want to study art history as soon as I can. So today we are gonna talk about this installation that kind of caused a moral panic in Finland in 2008. And this installation in question was called Neitsythuorakirkko, which translates to Virgin Whore Church. It was first shown in an opening of a new art exhibition of its creator Ulla Karttunen. As I said, the year was 2008. Neitsythuorakirkko was basically a tent set up in the exhibition room. When you walked in there, you were met with picture after picture of young porn actresses pretending to be teenagers in porn. Some pictures were very violent, like rape fantasies and such, and others were just these young actresses holding teddy bears or sucking a lollipop in a you know what I mean. I don't, but you know. I trust you. Most of the pictures went on the floor and you had to walk over them as you went through the tent. There was also a writing on the wall of the tent critiquing the sexualization of teenagers in porn. Even the title of the installation is a critique of this, as to be a virgin whore is impossible. It's paradoxical, even though many young girls still face sexualization from a very young age. So this is the art piece. It's the opening night, everything goes smoothly until one guest walks out of the installation in a state of shock. They don't know what to do, so they stumble out of the gallery, wine glass still in hand, and dial the emergency number. My accent is like so strong today. What the fuck? So anyway, the police arrives to the gallery to investigate the art piece that at this point has been on display for 75 minutes. They confiscate most of the pictures after coming to the conclusion that there's a possibility that some of the girls are underage. The guests invited to the opening night were pretty much the only people who saw Neitsythuorakirkko, and it's also gonna stay that way as the police forbid photographing the insides of the installation. The only documentation of Neitsythuorakirkko are the pictures taken by the police, which are currently under 25-year publishing ban, so press of course went crazy over this scandalous porn piece. But as there were no pictures of the piece itself, the artist Ulla Karttunen became the face of the articles that accused her of being a pedophile. It's important to note here that every picture she used for her piece was freely available for everyone who went to those porn sites. They were not behind a paywall or anything. She also wasn't surfing on the dark web trying to get her hands on some CP, as these actresses were in fact not children. The woman in the pictures, porn star Lena Silver, was 26 at the time but marketed herself as a teenager and listed her age as 18 on her website, which, I mean, we can talk like forever about the morality of questionable fan art, but this, can we just like take a moment to talk about this? She also used the stage name Teen Topanga? Topanga? I don't know how to pronounce that. Teen something. Anyway, the press and the court accused Ulla Karttunen of possessing actual CP. Spreading of CP was added to her charges after the police found out that at the opening night there had been this little leaflet that had like information about the exhibition and the art, and this leaflet had some pictures of Neitsythuorakirkko. The press really like clung on this with their little paws, and they really made it sound like this exhibition had been some shady gathering place of pedophiles where they came to take some CP home in the form of this leaf. So anyway, this case went to court in May of the same year. This trial was confusing to say the least. The prosecutor was very clear about his stance. There was not a chance that the women in the pictures were even teenagers, and Neitsythuorakirkko was just a show for the pedos. So you and me both, like, we see that it's pretty obvious what would have been a smart move from the defense to do next, right? Like, to prove that these girls were not in fact underage. However, did they do that? No, they did not. They straight up admitted to the possession of CP. I just can't wrap my head around that. They even admitted that some of the girls were quote-unquote extremely young and some of these pictures were extremely derogatory. The only thing that they were like trying to defend was that Ulla Karttunen had these pictures for like a good reason. She was making an art piece out of them. Defense attorney said that this kind of teenage fantasy is an essential part of porn, and he did believe that most of these pictures were acted out. So yeah, there's that. Pictures from the piece were also shown in the courtroom. The pictures were chosen by the prosecutor, and it was not really a comprehensive look of the piece. It was like most of these pictures were very violent, or the models looked very young. Like those were part of the piece, yes, but there were other kinds too, like as I said, some were just of the girls like holding a teddy bear or whatever. Also, as they were shown one by one in the courtroom, these pictures were stripped out of context. In the installation, the pictures were mostly on the floor, forming a faceless mass, and the lighting in the tent was very dim. There's definitely a difference between looking at a ton of pictures, like taking a glance at like shit ton of pictures once and then like looking at them one by one. However, the prosecutor then went on to claim that this art piece was in fact not an art piece. In his humble opinion, just plastering pictures on the wall without doing anything to them, he just didn't think that was art. However, if Ulla Karttunen had photoshopped these girls to be unrecognizable, like with a bar in front of their eyes or something, maybe then we could talk about art. This is an actual conversation they had in the courtroom. After the artist has tried to explain why that particular opinion is wrong. You know, you can have your opinion, but some are wrong. The discussion keeps going back to why she didn't cover the faces of the models. According to the prosecutor, she could have done at least that to reduce the suffering of the victims, aka the girls in the pictures. While I'm sure there are a lot of women and girls who are forced into sex work against their own will because they don't have any other options, these were porn stars. By googling the names of these women, you found like millions of results. The book I read for this video actually cites numbers you found by googling the names of some of these women. By the way, this is a great book. Recommend. So that's why this feels a bit weird to me. During the trial, Ulla Karttunen also delivers this very weird speech that honestly doesn't do much for her case. The main focus of her speech is immorality of fetishes revolving around schoolgirls, teenagers, as well as grown adults pretending to be teenagers. This is what Karttunen was trying to critique with Neitsythuorakirkko. Porn made children into sexual objects. She goes on to divide CP into categories A and B. A being actual CP that's consumed by pedophiles. Category B being porn that uses young actresses to convey an illusion of a child. She thinks there should be better laws to forbid this child porn P. While I think she makes some pretty valid points here, I think she also contradicts herself. On the other hand, she only used pictures that were freely available for anyone to use and find. And because of this, she can't be prosecuted for doing anything illegal. However, during the trial, she keeps reminding the judge that if it was up to her, the materials she used for her piece would be illegal. As I said, I think she makes some valid point, but also sadly this has nothing to do with the trial. It really doesn't matter what kind of laws she thinks should be in place when the trial was about whether or not she broke a law that was in place in Finland in February of 2008. I'm not gonna talk about every single detail of the trial. The end result was that after 2 weeks of deliberation, the judge announced a guilty verdict. But interestingly, Ulla Karttunen was not punished. Reasoning for this was the intention. Her intention was not to sell illegal CP or attract pedos to look at these pictures. Her intention was to bring awareness, so that's how the judge kind of reasoned her stance. She got a guilty verdict and she was not happy with it. According to Ulla Karttunen, she was not happy with this verdict because the public still very much viewed her as guilty and the villain, even though she was not being punished. So that was the trial and the verdict. Now let's talk about some reactions to this whole thing, because as I mentioned, this caused a bit of a moral panic, and yeah, we saw bits and pieces of that as she went to court and the whole installation was removed. But what were people in the art world actually saying about this thing? Well, the art world was very divided about this. Well, others thought that Neitsythuorakirkko was a great, thought-provoking piece of art, and some went even as far as to call Ulla Karttunen a hero. Others thought it was just, well, CP. According to these people, the fact that the installation was supposed to criticize CP was not clear enough. It just looked like a pile of pictures. And I should mention here that most of the people who talked about Neitsythuorakirkko after the trial had never seen the installation. Only a handful of people ever got to see the actual piece. The rest of the conversation was completely based on descriptions from magazines and whatever. This is honestly so interesting to me. It's probably the most interesting thing about this whole thing to me, because like, do you think you can have a good conversation about something you've never seen, like a movie you've never seen or a painting you've never seen? Like, honestly, tell me. I just think this is so fascinating. So this was my little deep dive into the case of Neitsythuorakirkko. Overall, I think this was a very interesting case, and there's definitely more grey here than there's black or white. I read a book for reference for this video. I don't think this has been translated, but I wanna mention it either way. Tapaus Neitsythuorakirkko by Juulia, Jyränki and Harri, Kalha. One of them is an art expert and one of them is some sort of lawyer, so it's very interesting to see two perspectives of this case where these two worlds very much collide. I recommend this book if you can read Finnish. It's definitely an interesting read. And yeah, that was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you. Bye!